Welcome back on the AM show. Time now for the news review. And today, guess what? The papers have done city-wide to us. So we're improvising, but we're going to bring you all the salient stories from that 12-year-old and that marriage situation to politics and everything in between. We'll also look on the international front. But joining me here in the studio, Sweetie Abochi is right here. And we're also joined by financial analyst Dr. Dogbey. He joins us from far, far away. Doc, good morning to you.
Good morning to you. Hi, Sweetie.
Hi, Doc. How are you doing? How did you celebrate Easter?
Pretty good. I have a big surprise for my friend Ben. I celebrated Easter right here in Ghana.
Are you kidding me?
You got him. He looks really surprised.
You came to town and you didn't let me know. I am cross with you, like cross.
Look, that's your April Fool's celebration for you.
Okay, you got me there for a moment. Anyway, right before we proceed, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helping us bring you this segment every weekday morning. And today is none different. They're offering you prostate screening for free if you're a man, fertility screening for free if you're a woman. Reach out to them at any of their branches, starting from here in Accra at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronum Abuehia behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady Anaji State, Tema Community 22, Techiman, Hanswa, and Esiamanzama. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. I'll just cede to you, Doc, like I always do, about 1.5, 2 minutes. I know you have something to share with us. What is it this morning? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Ben, during the course of the week, right, I read a news article about comments that were attributed to His Excellency President Mahama, that he plans to appoint the youngest cabinet should he be re-elected. You know, not to sound political.
You mean former president?
Yes, former President John Mahama. And I don't mean to sound political here, but frankly, these comments resonate with me a whole lot. When I think about our nation, our challenges and the dynamic or paradigm shift that we need to make in order to tackle these challenges, I always come to that conclusion that the nation needs more of our young folks, right, in leadership in various areas, both in the public as well as the private sectors. Don't get me wrong, right? We definitely need the seasoned leaders as well to also mentor and guide the younger ones. But largely, the destiny of our nation lies in the hands of the youth and the young adults of the nation. You know, His Excellency made a very good point about why he plans to appoint a young cabinet. He referred to the changing demographics of the nation, right, where the younger folks make up a chunk of the population, their energies and different perspectives that they bring to the table when addressing the challenges of the nation. So it is a move which will foster representation and also inclusivity that the younger folks need in this country. I think that this is a very good point and very promising to hear, and I will keep my fingers crossed to see the former president implement this when he's re-elected. But I'm also excited about this because when you think about the current drive, you know, by both parties to continue to digitize the economy, instantly your mind turns to these young folks who largely they have innovative ideas. Personally, I have found this strategy to be a winning approach, you know, in my corporate leadership experience when I prioritize building teams that are made up of the right number of younger folks. I have found that they bring fresh insights and creative solutions to the table to address very complex challenges, both in the private and also the public sectors. I have come to see that the young folks can also help in the development of their forward-thinking strategy or policies that resonate with the changing needs of the nation.
Right.
Then younger folks also tend to be more technologically proficient, right? And this is another reason why the nation needs them in key leadership positions to enable government institutions to better leverage digital tools and also champion emerging technologies for more proficient and effective governance.
Right.
This is what the younger folks bring to the table. So I also think that the nation needs that longer term vision and the younger folks do have that for the most part. So it sounds very exciting to me, and I'll see how he implements this.
Very exciting. And for me, I'm all for young people in leadership. I always say that especially on the continent of Africa, we are far behind when it comes to young people in leadership, young people given the opportunity. Some may say, yes, you must put yourself forward. But sometimes when they do, what happens? I mean, we have a very age-heavy leadership. I always go back to Mo Ibrahim, and it was this conference of sorts, and he had the opportunity of speaking. And he says, in Africa, you are appointing all of these people as president, as all of this, and they are 70, 80, 90 plus years old. Mind you, this was the time at which, was it Bouteflika or one of those in Algeria, was literally in a wheelchair going for another term.
Yeah.
And that there was a wave that, and he was like, where are these people taking you to? To the grave? You know, it wasn't ageist, but it was also to reflect on young people have new ideas. Talk to some of these Gen Zs, right? Even we who tend to be on top of stuff. Sometimes these Gen Zs will pick your phone and do things and be like, hey, there's a burst of life. And that's why I'm so excited about Bassirou Faye in Senegal, 44-year-old. I wish him well, really.
Well, if you look at the demographics, we are the majority, so it's only right that we have more fitting, you know, that we have more representation in parliament, in cabinet. And it's a long way to go, but it's a great step in the right direction. So hopefully in the next decade, we might be the majority in power, you know, and hopefully we turn things around. But let's get into the news now for the review. I'm sure you've been following the story about the 12-year-old girl who's been married customarily to a 63-year-old Ga priest. The story is on myjoyonline.com to bring our viewers who haven't really read it up to speed. So the Chieftaincy Ministry says it is taking into serious consideration the recent marriage between a 63-year-old traditional priest in Nungwa Gbobiwulomo, Numo Bokete Lawe, and a 12-year-old girl. Speaking to Joy News, the senior sector minister, Stephen Amoabuating, pledged to investigate the matter in order for his outfit to understand the issue and take necessary measures since the bride, Na Ayemwede, is a minor. Quote, I'm still doing a lot more checks to the traditional authority and the police command on the ground because we're talking about a minor here. We're also trying to reach the family of the 12-year-old. There's been a lot of arguments, school of thought, about how this is just a customary traditional right and it's not a sexual thing. So although this girl has been given away in marriage, she's not actually supposed to, you know, the marriage is not supposed to be consummated yet or something of the sort. But I'm curious to hear what you have to say, Doc.
So see, this whole thing about this 63-year-old marrying a 12-year-old girl is just so appalling. I can't even wrap my mind around it, right? Regardless of what they say, how they try to explain it. Look, I have a lot of respect for our cultures in Ghana. But any culture that will prioritize attending to a deity over the well-being of a child, something could be definitely wrong with that culture. What is wrong with us? Why are we stuck in the past repulsive practices when we should be championing the welfare and education of our children, especially the girl child? I have two girls of my own, so I get worked up a little bit about these despicable practices that tend to put our children, especially the girls, at risk of a sabotaged future. All in the name of what? Where is Waju? Or what do they call them now? Is it Dovsu, the Dovsu unit of police? Ghana is way past the level of backwardness. So let's pray and call on the right authorities, you know, to rescue this child. She is a child. What does she even know about marriage at 12 years old? Where are her parents? Don't they love her? What has she done to them? You know, she's just a child, in my opinion. So there's one thing that I also think about when I read this story. You know, in the Bible days, these things used to happen and people would sacrifice their children, right? That story is somewhere in the book of Jeremiah. I believe it's in verse 19. I don't recall the exact address, but it should be somewhere there. It says that the people built high places and sacrificed their sons to deities. And God said it didn't require such practices. And it didn't even cross his mind to command the people to do such. So in all due respect, is it that our people are misinterpreting something, or they are really following the orders of a higher force at the expense of the future of this child. I hope that there is a point where that the law of the land would overrule some of these cultural practices. And this is a case I hope that this girl will get help from the law so that she will be protected if those that God ordained to protect her have failed to do so. If you leave this girl in this cruel arrangement called marriage, you are depriving her of a childhood and education. She now has to take on adult duties at a young age. And guess what? Usually, these little children, right, they become brides at such young ages. They are more likely to face domestic violence and other abuses.
Yeah.
And if she doesn't get education because of this horrible thing, how can she gain meaningful economic opportunities? Will she then become trapped in a cycle of dependency and also economic disadvantage? Let's all raise awareness about this, and let's advocate for legal reform to better protect our children. This is barbaric, it is despicable, and we should call it for what it is.
And if I may just add, what I found interesting, very interesting, the fact that the Bible, traditional authorities are doing something, and people were citing Leviticus and all of that to back it. And some people were asking, when did we switch? And now we're using Old Testament Leviticus to substantiate this. I don't know whether we've forgotten. The legal age of marriage in Ghana is still 18.
Yeah, it is.
The age of consent, like in some countries you have 18, in some countries 21. The age of consent is 16. Yeah. But the legal age for marriage is 18. Now she's very far away from these 2 points. I don't know. It even gets me more worried when I'm told that she's been groomed for 6 years and all of that. So what? She was 6 years when...
What actually
I don't get it.
Grooming? And why is the senior sector minister saying he has to consult traditional authorities?
The
law clearly says this is a crime. She's not 18. She's not even 16 years old. You cannot give... And Benjamin, I'm afraid this is only one out of thousands of situations that have come to light. You know, this is happening everywhere in this country, in rural areas, places that our cameras cannot go. And so how we treat this will set the pace for the rest to also follow. If we actually bring this girl some justice and redeem her from the shackles of our outmoded cultural practices, it will augur well for other young people whose lives may be in danger because of traditional practices.
And here's the thing again. The point is made about the fact that it must be a virgin. And so she must be married. And I've heard people ask, including, I think, some members of the Ga community, in this, enclave nowadays, how many of those would you find? So if you want to practicalize it, then you probably go for babies.
Catching them young.
But I was happy because if you listen to the Gadangme lawyers, they condemned the marriage between Bobu Wulomo of Lungwa and Minor. And they expressed, I'm just reading a portion of that statement, their strong disapproval of the recent marriage between the man cited Numo Bokete Lawe, the 33rd, aged 63, and a 12-year-old girl. That's an age difference of 51 years, more than a half century, which took place on Saturday, March 30th, 2024. They say despite assertions that the marriage was conducted according to customary rights and that no marital duties will be undertaken by the minor until she attains the age of 18, this does not diminish the violation of her fundamental human rights as enshrined in Chapter 5 of the 1992 Constitution of Ghana. I'll not go forward. It also talks about customary practices, though, recognized by virtue of Article 11 of the Constitution, and it goes on and on. But this left a very bitter taste in my mouth because, 12-year-old.
I just want to hit the brakes on the things I want to say because this is just straight out barbaric.
It's despicable.
You cannot justify this anywhere.
Hiding behind tradition, right? We ought to get past that. It's the same way, and that's why we even changed the name from female circumcision to female genital mutilation. To give an idea. Because this was a cultural practice. Trokosi was a cultural practice. In fact, in some communities, they are still doing stuff where you're a child, your parents or someone related did something or couldn't pay a debt, and you are used to. That is slavery. You know, so you don't hide behind tradition and always go, oh, culture, tradition. Doesn't make sense to you, does it? I'm sorry. You know.
Anyway, let's do this story about the Attorney General who's directing the police to seize vehicle seizures for minor traffic violation. The story is on myjoyonline.com. The Attorney General's office has directed the Ghana Police Service to halt the seizure of vehicles for minor traffic violations. The directive addressed to the Inspector General of Police cites a surge in public grievances, including those from legal experts and high-ranking officials, over the police's practice of confiscating vehicles under the Road Traffic Regulations 2012, Legal Instrument 2180. The Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Godfrey Dame, highlighted that the regulation stipulates fines or imprisonment as penalties for minor infractions, thus making vehicle impoundment an excessive measure not supported by Regulations 158 or LI 2180. Benjamin, I'm sure you've been following this story. Yesterday, we spoke to some legal practitioners, and they say the law rightly states that you don't impound vehicles. And some school of thought, again, that the Attorney General is simply trying to save the country some more judgment debt. Because at the end of the day, these cars are impounded and kept at the police stations, wear and tear. Some damages occur, and then
some parts are stolen. Sometimes
some
you go
parts
back
are even stolen.
And someone has come to steal parts, and then
the state
it becomes
will have to bear the cost of this if it goes to court. So, really, is this order in line, Doc?
I mean, well, let Doc share his thoughts first.
Yeah, so I think that with this directive from the Attorney General, right, I'm not a legal expert, so I cannot say if he got it right or wrong. But what I can say is that if he had taken this initiative much earlier, it would have been well received by Ghanaians, right? Especially the drivers. And they wouldn't take it as another one of an election year gimmick. Because if you think about it, it is the right thing to do to some extent, right? One reason why I kind of like this directive, if it was done the right way or during before the election year, I think is the convenience that it affords the drivers. I remember a couple of years back, I came to Ghana and I was driving on the motorway, and I was also talking on my phone, I think without using a hands-free device. These cops pulled me over, and they were very furious that I broke the law. They asked me what I had to say, and I tried to explain myself. So they asked me if I wanted to go to the station or not. And I didn't know what that meant at the time. And they wouldn't listen to my explanation either, so they eventually took me to one of the police stations at Tema. When we got there, they said to me that I was being processed to court for using a mobile device while I was driving. I waited from morning till evening. I was just walking up and down the premises of the station until a relative gave me the gist of how to handle the situation. So just the inconvenience of getting your vehicle impounded for minor traffic violation, I think it's such an inconvenience you don't want to go through. And spending the whole day at the station, there is economic impact as well, because drivers lose a lot of time trying to get their vehicles back instead of engaging in productive economic activity. The only thing I would suggest we take cognizance of, while implementing this is that care has to be taken to ensure fair and also uniform enforcement. There has to be equal treatment of all drivers under the new directive. And hopefully, this will not encourage bad behavior by some of the drivers and create a situation where drivers repeatedly disregard traffic laws. We also have a problem of indiscipline on our roads, right? So we should seek to address that as well and not let the new directive unintentionally make an already bad driver behavior on the road even worse. If impounding vehicles for minor traffic violations served as a deterrent to the drivers who hitherto disregarded traffic rules, then as we implement this directive, I think that care has to be taken to ensure that some other form of deterrence is in place to discourage bad behavior and reckless driving on the road.
And if I may add, so the AG states the notion that a vehicle must be used as an exhibit, right, in court proceedings is indefensible and illogical. And then, purported breaches of road regulations. You are looking at infractions like running a red light, driving without insurance. I mean, these are things that there was a time, for example, when I had actually forgotten that my insurance was. I had forgotten.
It happens.
There was a time when I picked up a vehicle, right, from the mechanics. It had been there for a while. It had skipped my mind that the insurance had. So I picked the vehicle and I'm coming. And I told the guy, listen, I just picked the car from the mechanics. I've not even, and there was someone trying to arrange to get me the insurance. So some of these things can be tricky sometimes. But that also reminds me of a point I actually would have forgotten to make. On Sunday, there was a horrific accident. Right at the traffic light close to the Jubilee House, right? So those who get to the traffic light and then would turn towards Christ the King Church, and those coming from the Afrikiko lane heading towards 37. Both vehicles were, in fact, I had to assist, take one of them to the cantonment's police station and all of that. But it was so bad. And do you know why? The traffic lights were not working. So those turning from here and those speeding this way, if you don't gauge properly, and that happened, the only good thing is nobody died. 3 vehicles were involved. Hot afternoon, Sunday. One vehicle I hear had been rented, a rental car. This person is in a fix. The car was mangled, gone, engine destroyed. The other vehicle very badly hit. And you see, this is my point. I feel that accident could have been averted if our traffic lights had been working. Right at the seat of the presidency. Right there. I'm sure this morning it is still not working because oftentimes I use that stretch. It doesn't work. So if there are no police officers there, I don't get our country, honestly. Something as basic as traffic lights don't work. That accident could have been averted. Anyway.
Let me do one last story, and then, Benjamin, we can do your story. So the passport application fees, I'm doing this from
I was going to do it anyway, so let's go.
Okay, let's get into it. Passport application fees increase. Standard 32-page booklet, now 500 Ghana cedis. Where do they think we get the monies from? No, so per the new charges posted on the passport application website, an expedited application of a 48-page booklet will now cost 800 Ghana cedis, whereas expedited application of a 32-page booklet will cost 700 Ghana cedis. For those paying the standard 32-page passport booklet, it is now 500 Ghana cedis, and the 48-page will cost 644 Ghana cedis. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration in 2023 proposed a review of the old charges for passport application from 100 Ghana cedis to 644 Ghana cedis. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Shirley Ayoko-Botwe, in her explanation in Parliament last year, said, quote, "It is time for Ghanaians to pay realistic prices for passports they acquire for traveling beginning next year." And so this is what has come to light. We are now paying from 100 Ghana cedis to 644 Ghana cedis, the jump between 100 and 644 for a passport, a national identification booklet, something that I think that should be even given for free.
Travel document.
Travel document.
Right.
Ben, Doc, how do you respond to this surge in the cost of securing a travel document, a passport in our beloved country, Ghana?
You know, I don't understand why it seems that every time our government brings anything new, it is likely, to tax the people more or increase prices of something. It's such a bad timing for this. Why are we so bent on adding to the financial burdens of the people? Folks are already struggling, right?
But before you go on, Doc, before you proceed, are you also considering the cost of everything? Because, I mean, while I feel I am on that end where I think this is too much of a hike, a jump, but are we also considering maybe the cost of the process and putting these booklets together and all of that? I just wanted to avert your mind to that before you proceed.
But are they considering the economic hardship that we are also going through, caused by they themselves? I'm sorry, go on.
But even if you're thinking about inflation or whatever price index it should be tied to, it shouldn't be that much, right? We should be hearing about policies that would alleviate the economic burden on the people. So here's what I think. with this hike in passport fees, okay, it's going to have several implications across the nation. First of all, think about the student, for example, right? Those coming from a home with financial difficulties. Yet that student dreams of traveling abroad to study for the education, to further the education even more. Definitely a good ambition to have. For a student like that, this hike in passport fees may lead to reduced accessibility to travel for them. Affordability becomes an issue here, and it leads to more inequality, in our society. I'm telling you this from experience, so I know what I'm talking about. There was a time in my life when I was a student and I needed to get my passport. Even then, it was cheap, but it was still big money for me, right? So what I'm saying is that these higher passport fees make it more challenging for folks from low-income backgrounds to get their passports. And so you limit their opportunities and their ability to travel internationally. And with this reduced mobility, it's not just the students from low-income backgrounds that it impacts, right? It also impacts others who may need to travel for work and education because they might face some financial challenges in getting passports or renewing their passports. And there's the general economic impact of the city. You can argue that the hike in passport fees could generate additional revenue for government, which will be used to support government initiatives such as infrastructure development and public services, at least on paper, right? But the other side of the coin is this. This could also prevent some folks from traveling. And these folks are the folks that go out there, they work hard, and they send their hard-earned dollars of foreign currency to build or invest in Ghana. So the government could be missing out on investment in the economy and also the revenue it could generate in the long run. We ought to be thinking more about the long term. And so I think that it's important to know that sometimes higher passport fees also create room for passport fraud, right? When people who want to travel, but they find that the fee is too high for them, they sometimes become desperate, and they may turn to unapproved or unofficial means of obtaining these passports at a cheaper cost. So they could end up being duped, for fake passports, which can also pose a security risk for the nation and for other countries. I think timing is very wrong.
Well, we do have to go, but Graphic Online, this story caught my attention, and I'll just read some headlines. Cristel Candelario vacationed in Puerto Rico and Detroit while her 16-month-old was alone in a playpen for 10 days. Guess what? It's the story of an Ohio woman who has been sentenced to life in prison in a U.S. court earlier this month without the possibility of parole. She's 32, and she left her baby home for a 10-day vacation. And so she's getting that sentence without the possibility of parole. In other stories on Graphic Online, yes, the bit about the passports, Anti-LGBTQ plus bill, majority of Ghanaians have spoken clearly. That is according to Bishop Agenta. And there's a story about Mahama pledging to appoint youngest cabinet in Ghana's history if elected. ECG says we have stable national power supply. That's according to the Electricity Company of Ghana. Don't fault me for smiling. Don't fault me for smiling. I don't know whether you had doom or saw overnight. On BBC Africa, there's that major one there. In fact, the first one you'll see. Ghana girl married by priest 63 gets police protection. It's the first story you'd see. Parents of Chibok girls heartbroken again. And I was mutilated at 16, but I won't let it define me. Valerie Lolomari is determined to help other victims of FGM after years living in shame. I was just talking about FGM, and it's one of the major stories there from 2 days ago. Any final bits before we go?
No, that's it. We need to go anyway, so.
All right, so Doc, maybe final words in some 20 seconds, and then we're out of here.
Really, I just want the police force to resolve this thing about the 12-year-old girl quickly, right? It's a national embarrassment that they need to resolve it pretty quickly.
Thank you very much. Just a reminder, we have a police service, not a police force. We've moved from force. Even service in Puni, force. We beg you. Police service. And that reminds me of recently that incident where I think a girl's boyfriend or something was involved in some situation was in police custody. She went to pay him a visit. There was some misunderstanding, and the police officer cut her ear. Did you follow that story? Yes, literally cut off her ear. Yeah, so let's stick to service rather than force. But right before we go, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helping us bring you this segment as always. They're offering you, if you're a man, prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, fertility screening for free. Reach out to them at any of their branches. Here in Accra, at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. Kumasi, Kronoma here behind the Angel Educational Complex. The Stakrade and Anaji State, Tema Community 22, Tichiman Hanswa, and Esiaman Zamar. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. The end to chronic disease. Were you just saying the end with me? The end to chronic disease.
I like
All
how
right.
you say that.
So let's zoom into sports up next.